In the beginning, don't worry if you don't know the answers. All you have to have is the questions.
You are now listening to the podcast where authors inspire listeners to become authors, the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer, best-selling author, and book enthusiast Dom Brightman. And you're going to be listening to a different author that will inspire you to join the business of immortality, known as authorship. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode is sponsored by both books, Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself, and the follow-up bestseller, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. Head over to Amazon.com, pick up both books. They are available in a trifecta of paperback, audio, and ebook. Cop all three of both and be on the lookout for another book from yours truly to help podcasters succeed. Now let's get on with today's episode. And today on the highlight reel builder for authors known as the Going North Podcast, we got another super special, awesome human for you today. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Because my goodness, we got a wonderful bookcaster, y'all, a wonderful bookcaster. Because not only is she put pen to paper and wrote a wonderful book, she's also a fellow podcast host too. So she's the best of both worlds with being a bookcaster. And not only that, she's also a lovely wife as well as a grandmother, award-winning entrepreneur, community mobilizer, and the founder of Levees.org. So let's give it up for Miss S.R. herself, the stupendous and radiant Sandy Rosenthal. How you doing today, Sandy?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, right, indeed. You're a woman that's always on the move and on the go, had to pin you down. It's like, yeah, oh, the magical rescheduling. It's like random water just summons you, and it's like, all right, she's got to go save the world.
And I'm at it again. We'll talk all about it in the next few minutes.
Ah, well, there we go. There we go, indeed. So, my goodness, my goodness. I'm pretty sure you didn't always have the cape on. So, did you imagine yourself becoming an author at the age of 13?
No, never. When people go through a catastrophe, they change, usually for the better. Some people quite never recover, but I became what's called a resilience leader, a disaster resilience leader. And here I am. Here I am to talk about it.
Ah, there you go. A DRL, you love to see it. Disaster resilience leader, indeed. That's right, indeed. Because my goodness, it's wow, almost 20 years now from since Hurricane Katrina, right? Like we're like 2 years shy of the 20th anniversary, if I'm not mistaken.
In 2 years, it will be the 20th anniversary. It'll be 18 in just 10 days from now. 18 years.
And my goodness, indeed. That's right, indeed. Because yeah, a lot of crazy disasters going on. It's like you think it's Mother Nature, but there's some other stuff that just make it worse.
A wise woman, someone that I idolize, once said, always beware when you hear mayhem and catastrophe being blamed on wind and water, because human beings are almost always hiding behind those words.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely a shame indeed. Definitely a shame indeed. So my goodness, so with all that, I guess discovering all the cover-ups and everything like that, like my guess, what was the process like with everything going through, I guess putting the content together for the book, just to recap everything that was going on and to inform basically the whole world of what really happened.
No, for a decade, the whole world believed that the reason that the city of New Orleans flooded was a monster storm, and that New Orleans was 20 feet below sea level. Well, actually, half of New Orleans is at or well above sea level, and it was not a hurricane that flooded New Orleans. It was the mistakes of people. They engineered the levees wrong, and they fell over, and really what in New Orleans was a very moderate hurricane. And it took 10 years for the truth to come out. And that's why I wrote my book.
So what was the process like putting it together?
Well, the good news is, even though there's a lot of data, and my book is data dense and a lot of engineering detail, most of the people who read my book say it reads like a Grisham novel. which is in other words, a page turner. So that to me that made me feel really good because that's what I tried to do. I mean, who wants to sit down to a textbook? I mean, most people want a read that's interesting and makes you want to turn the page and find out what happens next. So, fortunately, my book is in that genre. It took me 5 years to write it, though, because I was writing the book and still doing the work of Levees.org, my organization. So, it's difficult to write and work at the same time. Anyone out there thinking about writing a book, you've got to take a good 3 to 4 hours a day to write a book. You can't do it in dribs and drabs. You can, but it won't be any good.
Yeah, definitely, definitely indeed. Because yeah, it's a lot of work, especially if you want to calm your editing mind for some folks in the beginning, where it's like, oh, let me edit this while I go along. It's like, no, just let it out first, then edit.
It is a lot of work, but for those of you that are watching the video, as my mother-in-law once said, you only need one publisher. You only need one. And this is a card that my children gave me after I found a publisher. It says, you did it. So keep the faith out there. Writing a book is hard, getting it published is hard, but you can do it.
So I'm talking about indeed. I'm talking about indeed. So putting the book together, keeping yourself to a schedule, running the organization, and if I'm not mistaken, it basically was you and your son, right, who helped you to really start it, if I'm not
That's
mistaken.
exactly how it started out. So my experience was no different from everyone else in New Orleans. We all had to evacuate. Some of us evacuated before the flooding, and some of us afterward. But we all had to get out. And in the weeks and months after this flooding, I kept thinking it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that the levees broke because of a hurricane. It must have been something wrong with the levees. So about 6 weeks after the flooding, I decided I needed to create an organization to get the word out. I know it's naive. I still can't believe I did it, but naivety can be a good thing. When you don't have people around you telling you can't do something, it's amazing what can be done. So it started out with me coming up with a mission, and my son, who was just barely 15 years old at the time, he created a website. And together we launched the group levees.org in a kitchen in Lafayette, Louisiana, 3 hours away from the city of New Orleans in November of 2005 after the levees broke. It began as just the two of us, but immediately overnight, 200 people joined the organization levees.org. Keep in mind, there was a vacuum of leadership at this time, and people were just craving information, just craving it. So 200 people overnight is quite remarkable, even in today's world of social media. 200 people. So what happened is when I started speaking out and my son helping me, experts would arrive. Like a lawyer agreed to offer his skills pro bono, and a media expert offered his skills pro bono, and an engineer approached me and offered his skills pro bono. So if you're out there and you see a problem in your neighborhood and wish there was something you could do about it, speak up, because the experts will come and they will offer you their help, because no one can do anything important alone. You can start it alone, but you can't finish it alone.
You're so right about that. And it just goes to that wonderful tried and true lesson of, hey, you just have to really just start, really, because a lot of folks don't even start because, hey, the help arrived once you decided to make that decision and you were focused on what the mission was and you took the one step forward that became many steps forward. And if I'm not mistaken, there's actually a museum in the exact area where the hurricane happened, right?
Yes, there are actually two museums, two exhibits. One of the exhibits is basically plaques that explain what happened when the levees broke, and the other exhibit is we recreated an actual scene. It's called a diorama. It's actually a three-dimensional room that looks like what the people had to come home to after Hurricane Katrina. It looks just like that. It's a replica. It's not real, but it's the mold on the walls and the furniture fallen over and covered with brown mold and just everything muddy, just mud everywhere. It's not real mud, of course. It's just all a replica. And we created this replica. It's called the Flooded House Museum. and it opened in 2019. And visitors come and see it every single day, every day, and that's why we built it.
Good deal indeed. So, my goodness, so what are your plans for the future now? Is it going to be exploring other, I guess, avenues of natural disaster, see how you can make sure the truth comes out about each and every one? Like, what are you excited about for the future of levees.org?
Well, there's two things I'm excited about. One is my podcast. Every single week, I interview somebody who has a problem in their community, and I give them tips and tricks and tools to help them beat the big guys. That's the name of my podcast. And that's been a lot of fun because I've learned that all the big guys, all the forces that are pushing back at us and making our world a not a good place, they all share the same qualities. They're all the same. And they all go by the same playbook. And once you recognize this, it's easy to beat the big guys. That's one of the things I do. And I do that podcast once a week. In fact, I'm interviewing someone later today. But the other thing with regard to my organization, levees.org, next week at the 18th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, we will launch a campaign because we want to make sure that every single engineering student in the United States, everyone, is exposed to engineering failures and the lessons that can be learned from them. And right now, engineering schools don't do that. They do not provide instruction about engineering disasters. That blew my mind when I found out about it. Blew my mind. I still have trouble believing it. At first, I thought it wasn't true, but it is. So, my organization is launching a campaign to change that.
So I'm talking about indeed. It's kind of interesting though about it, engineering failures not being taught in engineering classes. It's like, wouldn't you want to know both sides of the spectrum, how to deal with everything? I mean, you're in school to learn. It's like, well, then again, that's a whole other podcast, probably whole entire podcast series of what's missing in schooling.
And you realize what also probably not being taught is about what happened right here in New Orleans 18 years ago. It was engineering failure. The Army Corps of Engineers made a mistake and they decided to drive the sheet piling down only 16 feet instead of 50, 50, 1-6 instead of 50. And they thought it was a good decision. They thought they were going to save money. Steel is expensive. They saved $100 million with that decision. And the Army Corps was so excited and proud of themselves for saving taxpayers this big chunk of money, but they made a mistake and they failed to take into account hydrostatic forces that are too complex to go into here. But they made a mistake. And when the levees broke during Katrina, they broke when water was still 4 feet from the tops of the walls. 4 feet. They should have held water all the way to the top. So they were doomed. We were doomed. They were doomed to fail. And the people of America need to know about it. And our engineering students of today need to know about that. Well, it seems simple to me. I think they need to know about that. And you know what? Every single person I tell, everyone, when they hear that engineering students are not learning about disasters, I'm not talking about just levees. I mean, there was a disaster just as recently as a week ago where a deck at a country club collapsed with 40 people standing on it.
Oh,
And then there was the Miami disaster where the half the building collapsed. And these are engineering disasters. So, and they're going on all the time and all over the world. But certainly, maybe I can't change the world today, but certainly in the United States, we have the power here in this country to change the way that things are done in this country. Well, at least I think so.
oh, that we do indeed. Because hey, that's really how it all starts. It's like one small fire that kindles and gets bigger and bigger with time, with the nice little great group of folks that can really get it together. It's almost like the good old 300. That's right, indeed. You just need a good 300 indeed. It's
And
everything
in the
else will be
beginning,
bonus.
excuse me, in the beginning, don't worry if you don't know the answers. All you have to have is the questions. Ask questions. Things don't make sense. Ask questions. You get a stupid answer or an answer to a different question, ask it again and keep asking until you get your answer. When people change the subject, it's probably because they have something to hide. Yeah, so don't worry if you don't know all the answers from the beginning. The people of this country have the power to change things for the best. You know, a big wig in the Army Corps of Engineers, some big lieutenant colonel of the South District, said to me, "Do you know that you have more power to change the way things are done at the Army Corps of Engineers than I do?" And he was a big wig
Wow.
lieutenant colonel. He said, "I had more power to change the way things are done." And I think he was saying that to be helpful because I think he understood there were problems. And I'll never forget those words. I can't remember if he's in my book. I know he was in my original manuscript. My publisher made me cut out like a third of my book,
Ah,
and that's something you authors out there need to be prepared for. But it's better that the publisher asks you to take out which third you want taken out. It's better that you do it than they do it. So so it's not as bad as it sounds.
well, that's good to know. Definitely good to know. Indeed. That's right, indeed. The good old throes of dealing with traditional publishing. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, my goodness. So, basically, starting at the community level and just letting it expand. My goodness, any words of encouragement or wisdom for your experience from organizing your community to do successful things to get things right if things aren't going the right way?
I do. I'll admonish everybody. It's no matter what it is you decide to do. One of my guests was just trying to um, beat the big guys in her neighborhood, her homeowners association of all things. So this particular guest had a what's called a pollinator garden. So instead of grass that needs to be mowed every week, she had milkweed for the butterflies, and she had plants for the rabbits and the bunnies, and she had what's called a nature garden, for lack of a better word. And her homeowners association came in and said, "You've got to tear that whole thing out and put in grass." Okay. Well, she felt in her bones this was wrong. Wrong for the planet, wrong for the milk, wrong for the butterflies, wrong for the bunnies, wrong in every way. And she decided to fight. Okay. So she did fight. And one of the things that I will admonish, she found it took a little longer than she thought it would take, and it was a little harder than she thought it would be. So be prepared for that. It's going to be a little harder than you thought and take a little longer than you thought. But hang in there, and you shall win. And there's a saying: it's always darkest just before dawn. Right when you think it's hopeless, right when you think all that hard work was for nothing, you are going to prevail. You are going to win. Don't give up. Those are my words of advice.
There you go. Don't give up, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, since you've been on so many interviews on the both sides of the microphone, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often?
Well, thank you for asking me that. So, I'm going to take this moment to thank every single reporter out there or radio host who's interviewed me. I had no idea when you're on the other side of the microphone, when you are the person asking the questions, you're the one that has to do all this research. You're the one that has to
Yeah.
so you, Dom, you had to learn about me. You had to you obviously did research because you know a lot of things about me and what I've done. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to research a guest before you have them on, especially when it's a guest who's in a field that's completely different from your field and your expertise. So thank you, all of you out there. I had no idea. I had the easy part. All I had to do was show up because clearly I know what I'm doing. Clearly I know what my mission is and what my goals are. And I don't need to study them before getting on an interview. So thank you, all of you out there who have interviewed me in the past. And forgive me because I always was annoyed because I always had this one question that I must have had to answer a million times. And that is, why did you decide to do this work? Instead of just living a fairly comfortable life, I didn't flood. My husband's business flooded just a tiny little bit. My son's school didn't flood, but here I was leading the charge to help all of the flooded victims of New Orleans get to the truth. Why did I do that? And I got that question a million times, and it's in my book. And anyone wants to know it, it's all in my book. So, but the question that I wish people would ask me is, how were you able to beat the great and powerful Army Corps of Engineers? They're an international organization. They have money, more money than they can possibly spend. They just need to decide how to spend it, and they have access to resources, and they spend millions of dollars on public relations. How did you do that? And the answer is, when one of the qualities about the big guys is they're big, and they think just because they're big, they're invincible, they're unstoppable, they're unbeatable, just because they're big. And that is the downfall of the big guys every time, because when you're so big, you think you're invincible, you make mistakes, you are arrogant, okay, and you dismiss very real concerns. And so the bigger you are, the bigger mistakes you make, and that is their downfall. In the case of the Army Corps of Engineers, I caught them sitting at their computers and typing vicious comments into their computers, harassing me, my group, and anybody who supported my group. And we caught them red-handed using something called an IP address. And for the folks of you out there who don't know what an IP address is, it's a computer version of caller ID. Okay, so imagine someone called you on your phone and started whispering and leaving vicious comments, and you could see from your caller ID who it was. That's basically what happened. No, not exactly, but basically what happened. And while it's not illegal for the Army Corps of Engineers to harass citizens in this country, it was embarrassing when they were caught. And the Army Corps in this town of New Orleans still hasn't recovered from that. They will never recover. Because when you're caught being bad, when you're caught with your hand in the cookie jar, people are going to remember it. So the big guys are not big. They're really no different from the bully in the third grade playground. A bully in the third grade playground, they're usually bigger. Not always, but they're usually big. And they think just because they're big, they're smarter and better, but they're not. Those big bullies are usually not smarter than you are. And I would bet that you are smarter than they are. So these bullies make mistakes. They're thin-skinned. That's why they're bullies. They're worried about their reputation. And that's another thing about the big guys. They're all worried about their reputations. And you ruin their reputation, you've ruined them. Or you catch them doing something wrong, their reputation is ruined. So don't be afraid. The bigger the big guys, the easier they are to pull them down. And it's going on every day in this country, every day. And in the world, but certainly going on here.
Definitely right about that. And it's so true. It's like the thing is, folks get to a certain level and they're like, oh man, I feel freaking untouchable and invincible. And truth be told, that's really when folks are their most vulnerable because they're so dang arrogant. They lost their edge and they're like, oh yeah, we got all this protection, we got all this resource. Like, we'll be fine. We could take on anything. And it's like, oh, I thought they were an ant, but it's actually a whole elephant. Oh joy. Like, darn it. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, so since you're a fellow podcast host, always got to ask one of those obligatory podcast hosting questions. So, my goodness, what would you consider your 3 major lessons learned from starting, growing, and running your podcast?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. Things that I wish someone had told me in the beginning. One of the things I wish I'd known is doing a podcast once a week doesn't mean you're focused on one episode at a time. You're focused on a lot of episodes at a time. You're focused on episodes that you recorded a month ago that you might still be promoting. You're focused on an episode that you would like to invite a guest to that you need to research. And then you're also focused on your episode that you're working on at the moment. So it's really a lot of episodes at once, So be aware of that and stay focused, because you certainly don't want to say hello Mr. Brightman when it actually isn't. It's somebody else. So that's a mistake that you don't want to make. So it is a lot to keep and to juggle, but you can do it. Just be aware of that. Trying to think what other things I wish I had known. Oh, the, two things. The first is it's okay when you first start out to not have many ratings, not have many people have rated it. You're just getting started. So if someone were to say, well, I see, Ms. Rosenthal, you've done 5 episodes, but you only have 5 ratings. And I said, well, I'm just getting started. It's okay. And it's okay to set up a new social media with your podcast title because you're just getting started. So it's okay because it'll take time, but it will come. And then the other thing that I wish someone had told me is that to get your rating started, it's okay to ask your family and friends to go to your podcast, listen to an episode, and rate it. It's perfectly acceptable in this country to do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And 99% of the people that you ask, would you log on to my podcast, listen to an episode, and rate it, please? Will say, thank you for telling me. I didn't know you had a podcast. So that's okay. And that can give your ratings a real good boost right in the beginning where maybe you need it most, but that's something that does take time. So those are 3 things that I wish someone had told me when I started my podcast. So I'm anyone out there thinking of do it, please do it. It's fun. It's fun and exciting and interesting. And the friends you make, because when you've spent, I mean, here we are, we're spending 45 minutes together today. We'll be friends at the end of this 45 minutes. Okay. And so you make new friends. Now, I admit some of the people that I interviewed, I knew already, but now I know them even better. So that's another benefit of doing a podcast that I didn't realize would happen until after I began doing it. And I just completed my 80th episode. So now I've got 80 great friends.
That is huge right there, because most folks quit after 8 episodes if they even get to 8. That's right, indeed. They quit before the quitting is good. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. And she ain't one of them. That's right, indeed. She's in there like swimwear for the long haul. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. And just solid reminders, too. It's like, hey, it ain't nothing wrong with taking advantage of what you have at the start. Because, hey, humble beginnings, never neglect them. That's where all the magic happens. That's right, indeed. And those days are the funnest because it's like, all right, cool. We don't know nothing. We're learning everything.
And don't worry if your first episode isn't your best. That's another thing. Don't worry about that. Odds are, when people listen to podcasts for the first time, they tend to listen to the most recent one anyway. Not everybody just goes to. Not everybody says, "Oh, I think I'll listen to 80 podcast episodes of a podcast they've never heard before." They're more likely to listen to a more recent one. So don't worry about that. I'm a little embarrassed when I listened to my first one because I was nervous. I was nervous for my first one. I interviewed the great General Russell Honore for my first episode. And even though he's a warm, kind man, he didn't make me feel nervous, but I felt nervous because it was my first podcast episode and it showed. At least I can hear it loud and clear. But again, don't worry about that. Go ahead and start your podcast.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Well, fun question for you. So, if your fabulous book, Words Whispered in Water, if that book were a food, what would it be and why?
What would it be and why? If my book were food, boy, that's a new question. Food. What would it be? Well, it's interesting. In my book, a lot of people have noticed that I discuss food a lot. I mean, I discuss what we ate for Thanksgiving dinner. I discuss what we were eating at an important meeting, okay, and where we were and what we ordered, okay. So I think if my book were food, I would have to say it's the food that we were eating at was basically the climax of the book, which occurred at a meeting at a sushi restaurant. And it was It was a special kind of roll that was named after a college nearby. It was named after Missouri S&T College. So it would be a Missouri S&T sushi roll.
Hey, I'm talking about indeed. She's on a roll. That's right, indeed. She's on a Rosenthal
Well,
roll.
I live in New Orleans now, and it's always all about the food in New Orleans. You could be in New Orleans and at a business meeting and having a very serious business meeting, but all conversation stops when the food arrives because all the conversation is going to be discussing the food for the next 10 minutes. And then they get back to business. But in this city, it's all about the food. And if you're a restaurant and the food that you serve isn't good, you're going to close because no one will come.
Right. Competition's fierce, I imagine. That's right, indeed. It's Sasha Fierce, even.
We do like to eat in the great city of New Orleans.
And the good news is you get to sweat it all out later because of the humidity.
That's true, and more months of the year. It used to be pretty much just May to October. Now it's more like April to November. But yep. So that I guess
uh,
that's the good news.
Good old global warming. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is if you'll wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but you're still in the current year, what advice would you give to yourself?
Okay, I'm 25, but we're here now. Ooh, when you feel like you've just been disrespected, when you feel you've just been made fun of, don't react with anger, just make a note of it. Don't react with anger, don't react with upset, don't react with hurt. Register it and make a note of it. Because anybody who disrespects or makes fun or tries to hurt intentionally, there's something going on with them. Something going on with them. It's not you, it's them. So so don't react with anger. Anger is never a good response to anything. It's never a good response. Make a note of it, and then later try to figure out what was going on with that. And in time you will. In time you'll figure out why you were disrespected, why someone wasn't nice to you. But that's what I would tell myself, because the bullies are out there, and the bullies definitely have thinner skins than you, and that's why that's why they're bullies. I think that's what I would tell myself. Keep that smile on your face.
There you go. Certainty might even creep them out in the process. Be like, oh, she's still smiling. Oh, crap. Oh, all right. Hope she's not a serial killer.
Make a note in your little black book. But there's something going on. It's not you, it's them. It's not you, it's them. And in time, you'll find out why. Because I know that's gone on with my life. Someone who disrespected me 10 years ago, and then all of a sudden, 10 years later, you find out more information about them. You go, oh, that's what that's about. It wasn't me. It wasn't anything I did or said. It was them. So that's what I would say. So being angry, being upset is a waste of energy.
That's right, indeed. A waste of energy, indeed. But I know it's not a waste of energy. It's about keeping up with you and all the stuff that you're doing. So for those who need to keep up with Sandy, snag some copies of her magical book and keep up with your journey, what's the best way for folks to do so?
My book is available on Amazon.com. It's called Words Whispered in Water, Why the Levees Broke in Hurricane Katrina. And probably the easiest thing for you to do, that's a long title, just type in my name, sandyrosenthal.net, and you're going to get anything you want. My podcast, my book, my organization, it's all right there, sandyrosenthal.net. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. This has been a fun conversation.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. That's the name of the game. Keeping it fun on the bun over here. That's right indeed. While everybody else is being ultra serious and boring and having a bald head with no random thought, we like to keep it fun on the bun here indeed. So hear that right, folks. Head over to Sandy's wonderful website, sandyrosenthal.net. Snag some copies of her magical book. Share it with your friends, family, cat, dog, penguin, heck, maybe even share it with a wonderful tiger. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Just make sure it's a few feet away from the tiger, though. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. You don't want the blood of the tiger, and the tiger doesn't need your blood either. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So, my goodness. So, before the whole zoo appears, any parting words before we close up shop, Sandy?
Everyone have a beautiful, blessed day.
If you're hearing this part of the episode, that means you're one cool individual. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to share it with at least one other person in your network. Bonus points for 3. And be sure to check out the backlog too while you're at it, because there are hundreds of wonderful episodes to choose from as well.